first year, the establishment year. We plant it in rows, as you see, heading from a row. The reason for this is for harvesting. So when we come to harvest it, we use a basically converted forage harvester, and the machines will basically straddle a double row, and they just chop that whole row in one application. So cut it down and chip it, and you put it into your room. We plant it in, so it's like 1.5 metres between each double row, and then 75 to 80 centimetres that way, and then 60 centimetres between each plant, and that gives you a density of around about 15,000 per hectare. In this crop, we've got 6 different varieties. I won't go into all the details. If you want the details in this one, Kevin has your map. Willow, when we're going to a biomass kind of environment, we'd have it as put in a 3-year cycle. I would always class the first year as the establishment year, and then go into your 3-year cycle. Traditionally, the thinking has been to actually cut it back. So say January, February time, we used to come back and cut this crop right back down to the ground again, and that would stimulate coppicing. But what I've noticed, particularly on poorer quality land where the crops or the plants are starting to get away, I've noticed that sometimes we can get up to 20% mortality where a plant that was alive, once you cut it back, it doesn't come back. So my view is we don't actually cut back anymore, we just let it be and then get into your cycle. So as you can see, we've got stuff, Kevin's what, a good 2 metres, we've almost got probably 3 metres worth of growth in 5 months. Next year, now that the roots have kind of established, this will rocket away and it'll be 5-6 metres tall by next year. One question I get all the time is roots, will it knacker my drains? The honest answer from my experience is yes and no. If you've got drains that are running all year round, so there's a spring or there's water flowing through that drain all the time, the willow will find it. If you've just got normal field drains that when you get a rain event, water passes through them and then they dry again, the willow won't block the drains.
I'll just say something about the species that are involved in these varieties. Now, with older, that might be Italian old, I'm not sure, but that could be kind of semi sort of naturalized. With eucalyptus, that is not native. Robinia is not native. Miscanthus, not native. Willow is a grey area, but unfortunately often it gets classed as non-native. Now the reason why I say that is because people say, well, willow's native surely. Well, the species involved in these ones, there are European willows, there's Russian and Siberian willows, and then there's Chinese species. And we've mixed those European types with exotic equivalents from these other places. And of course what's happened there when you do a plant breeding crops is that you get hybrid vigor. So that's fantastic. Now, the reality is that even though some of the species are not from around these parts, the bugs and the birds don't seem to notice too much. So I kind of would like policymakers to start thinking slightly differently about willow and saying actually it's more native than not, because the native type of angle comes from this sort of what was here since the last ice age 10,000 years ago, which is a blink of an eye in geological time, when we have a 4 billion year old earth and a 60 million year old genus in willow. 60 million years, so 10,000 years is not very much. So as I say, the bugs, the birds, they don't seem to notice.
Everything else we've seen here is kind of classed as a forestry crop, whereas this is more of an agricultural crop. So we can plant this much more quickly and much more densely. So I don't know if anyone noticed, but I've brought actually a willow planter with me in the yard, so if anyone's interested, when we get back I can talk you through how that works. But it enables us to plant much more efficiently and quickly. All these crops are planted by hand, whereas this is mechanized. as I say, we're planting 15,000 per hectare, so we can plant probably 3 to 4 hectares per day. For planting, you would spray off, plough, power harrow, just like any other crop, plant it into that, then put your pre-emergence on, off you go, let it come up. Like a lot of the other crops, it is very susceptible to weeds in the first year. Once the canopy is closed, it will outcompete everything. But the first year, weeds need to keep on. So as you see here, we actually mown these rows. You can inter-row spray them if you want to. It's also susceptible to rabbits, hares, deer, the usual suspects. So you need to keep on top of them. But again, once it's away, you can kind of see these edges have been grazed. That's fine, a bit smaller. Once it's away, it's not a problem. Willow is predominantly used for biomass production, but it can be used for other things such as flood mitigation. So, what do you mean by flood mitigation? Well, I'm from Carlisle, just across the border. Carlisle's been flooded twice, big time, in the past 15 years. The main river is the River Eden. Further upstream, we've now started to plant some willow on some fields that literally every year they get flooded. The farmers given up putting winter crops into them, sick of fences getting pulled away, ripped away. So we put willow in there, and it's grown extremely well. Good fertile land. You think, well, you should be putting crops in it, but you can't. It just gets, crops get destroyed. What's happening is, because you've got such a density, it's creating a thing called hydraulic roughness, which basically, when you've got mud water coming through, it slows it down. I'm not talking like stopping it, but it slows it down. And from my experience in Carlisle, we're obviously quite close to the sea, and when you've got a foot of rain come down one night, and then you've got the tide coming in, basically there's nowhere for this water to go. If you can just hold the peak part of that water back, it just stops, gives it an hour, 2 hours, it stops the water from going over the top of the flood defences. It's also extremely good at stopping debris. So first flood was in 2005, it was just sheer volume of water. Second flood in 2015 was a different flood. How can you have a different flood? What happened was debris was coming down and it was getting stuck in bridges, and actually the bridges were then turned into dams, and then it just started backing up. Willow, even this size, 5 months old, I've got pictures of this in Keswick, can stop tree trunks, railway sleepers, and capture all this debris.
More biomass.
Sorry?
More biomass.
Yeah, we've got to pull it out. That's a fair the backside. But it's a public good, which I think farmers should be getting paid for.
So another plug for the webinar series of BioMass Connect. In a couple of weeks on the 16th, colleagues from Energy Crops Consultants
No need to now.
we'll be talking and actually showing images.
Yeah.
And I really hope policymakers tune in for this, images of different storms and things that the fields of SRC willow have actually done. No payment for the farmers, but a public good benefit from that. And I would like to think people would think that seems such a no-brainer. We should be doing that. We should be paying farmers for that. So please tune in and see some really great pictures of this in action. Because at the moment, what we're doing is the Forestry Commission provide grants for wider spaced trees for flood mitigation, but the more closely spaced trees like willow and also miscanthus, which is not a tree but closely planted plants, are not getting anything. But they do the job much more quicker and better.
And the thing you just said as well, it's quite big trees that it'll stop even at that size, but it still recovers. It's, you know, your willow still goes back.
Another area it can be used for is land restoration. So, say brownfield sites that have had heavy industry on heavy metals in there. Willow's extremely good at pulling up heavy metals and cleaning up soils, but also effluents and waste materials, say from landfill sites or quarries, open cast. This kind of crop can really clean up and also manage effluent much more efficiently than tankering it away, getting it processed. This crop can do it. And another area which we're looking heavily into is biorefining, so actually extracting compounds, chemicals. We've got trials in pharmaceuticals, so we're looking at a cancer treatment drug based on willow. We're looking at cosmetics. We're looking at packaging, all sorts of materials. So it's not just a biomass crop. There's got huge potential. Any questions?
What age does willow get harvested?
If you look at the literature, it said 3 years. But as I said before, first year I'll class as the establishment, and then you're into your 3-year cycle. So if you're wanting it for biomass, so a lot of wood, 3-4 years, depending on how well it's growing. If you're wanting it for other things, say for biorefining, potentially want to be cutting it more regularly. So it depends on the end use.
Just one other thing about the willow plantation as a mixture. So a lot of people look at this and think, well, it's all the same, but it's not. There's 6 different varieties in here, and the reason why we grow in mixtures is to stop disease and pests affecting it. Now, what I've said that bugs do like willow, but what you want to do, you want to stop bugs sort of infesting all the way through. And by doing an intimate mixture, what happens is that the bug might like this one and starts nibbling at the leaves, and then it travels onto that plant there, which is different, and it thinks, oh, I don't like that one, I'll stick here. So it doesn't proliferate, it doesn't continue to just go through the entire plantation. Whereas if you had a proper monoculture of one variety, it would just explode through there and just eat the whole thing. And 1 year in probably every 5 or 6, you'd have a decimated crop. Most of these willows are rust resistant, fungal rust resistant, but we want to future proof. So by planting in a mixture, if one of them fails in the future, hopefully other ones won't, because you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. So again, if you've got rust in the future, it would take the whole thing out if it was a monoculture, but it won't in this situation.
Are these 6 varieties covered by plant breeders' rights?
Yeah.
So there's a royalty to pay on each cutting?
That's right, yeah.
I think the plan is to harvest this, is it? In 2 years' time? Or is it the end?
It's at the end of November, it takes 8 months.
If you're into it,
Just worthwhile pointing out now, if you want to see what the other sites are looking like, because I know we've got Callum and we've got Christmas Aberystwyth. I don't think we really want to play top trumps on crops at the moment, but if you want to compare how they're doing in different areas, we've been filming them over the last few months, so you can click onto the website and have a walk around the website, have a walk around each site and see how well they're doing in the different areas. But not wanting to put anybody on the spot if yours are doing better than theirs or anything like that. We're just going to have a wander over to some poplar over there. I don't know, were you going to use that in anger or?
I'm going to use these for the demonstration with the machine later on, so I'm just going to nick a couple of rods.
I didn't want to interrupt the demonstration.
I'm done.